All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I think we'll go ahead and get started. It's 2:03, a few minutes past the hour. Hello and welcome to our webinar, How to Customize Your Salesforce User Interface in Minutes. My name is Andy Golden, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Let's go ahead and do introductions. So I'm the Director of Experience Marketing here at Skuid. I'm joined today by Kathy Swanson, our Director of Design, Josh Cutler, our Senior Learning Media Developer, and Emily Maxey, our Digital Marketing Director. And as a reminder, if you haven't already done so, follow us on Twitter and monitor the ongoing conversation there with the hashtag Skuidinar. I think Emily's already begun the conversation, and we can keep having that. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Kathy for 5 essential elements of a stellar CRM user interface.
Hey everyone! I recently saw a great quote that summed up UI design. A user interface is like a joke. If you have to explain it, then it's not that good. Here are 5 things to remember when tackling the UI design of your CRM to ensure that you're on the path to success. Clarity. Enable users to interact with your content easily and intuitively. There should be no ambiguity over how your interface operates. In other words, you shouldn't need a manual on how to interact with your site. Efficiency. A good UI should make it easier and faster to accomplish your tasks. Think fewer clicks, quick paths to get to your most used functions. Consistency. Through our theme builder, which you'll be learning more about shortly, create an environment that your users are familiar with. From incorporating your company's branding, taking cues from existing websites, intranet, and branded apps, to treating charts and data coming from different sources in a similar manner. Users will learn new features more easily by pulling from previous experiences, and onboarding new employees will be even faster. Keep your users in control. Your CRM shouldn't own you. A well-planned UI empowers users to tackle the work at hand using clear direction and intentional actions. Keep informed of the progress of actions so that they don't get frustrated. Simple cues like timers and taskbars do wonders for setting the mind at ease. And finally, visual appeal. Yes, we're saying to judge a book by its cover. An aesthetically pleasing UI will make using your CRM a more enjoyable experience. And you might just get fan mail from users whose jobs you've made easier and their bosses who have happier and more productive employees. Now, let's see some great UI design in action. Some of you may have heard of one of our clients, Informatica. With 300 partners in over 50 countries, Informatica created a new partner portal to meet their partner needs. Because they used Skuid, this portal can be easily updated by their partner relationship team. And best of all, it took them less than 2 months to build this new portal on the Salesforce platform. Now let's take a quick look at their partner portal homepage. Branding throughout is consistent with the Informatica brand. Colors, fonts, and logos and photography. Navigation is sorted by content, keeping the users in clear control. Color highlights frequently used features to the user. And finally, content buckets on the home page guide quickly grab the user's attention, directing them to key actions.
Kathy, thank you for sharing that with us. Really appreciate that. And before we dive into the Skuid theme builder with Josh, I'd just like to point out that in this webinar, we're only talking about the cosmetic changes you can make with Skuid. If you're interested in some of the more complex uses for Skuid, check out our webinars page on our website to see previous webinar recordings that talk about things like wizards, dashboards, tables, and some of our other awesome components. Emily will post a link in the chat pane now. Josh, it's your turn. I'd like to turn it over to you to walk us through a demo of Skuid, specifically the theme builder.
Thanks, Andy. I'm happy to take over and serve as the safari guide on this wild adventure. Okay, it's not really a wild adventure, but it is an important thing. It is really good for you to know the options you have when it comes to customizing your CRM. So you should be able to see right now on your screen an example of the Salesforce Classic or Aloha user interface. So in this example, we have the Contacts tab selected, and you see all the different actions and tasks that you can take care of. You also have your list views. I'm going to go ahead and choose one and kind of dive in. And as you're familiar with, or I think you might be familiar with, to change the way that this looks, you build new list views. You can also change which fields are available. And then once you find the record that you want, when you click on it, you go to the detail view for that record. And here you have some more options for customizing the way that your CRM looks. You can use their page layout editor to make changes, to add fields, to add buttons, quick actions, and of course related lists, and even break out things a little bit more distinctly with different sections to change the way that it looks. Now that's the example for the Aloha user interface, but we also want to show you the Lightning experience, because if you're new to Salesforce, this might be on by default, or you're an existing Salesforce user and you've decided to turn the Lightning experience on. So this org has been struck by lightning. So let's go take a look at something similar to what we just saw. So I'll go back to the Contacts tab and force it to refresh. Come on, Contacts tab, I need you. Pull it together. Here we go. Okay, so I've got my list views, just like I did in the classic interface. I'll go back to All Contacts, and here you can see that Salesforce has taken some of the lessons they've learned with user experience from Aloha or Salesforce Classic, and they've incorporated it into their Lightning experience. So right away you can see that visually it's a lot different. Well, it's different. Maybe not radically different, but it is a big improvement, at least in my opinion, over what they previously had. So even the spacing is a little bit more intuitive. It's easier to see things. The navigation, of course, is very much different, and now it goes by icons, so that you have a more compressed navigation system. Yeah, and there's lots of other features that they've rolled into it. But if I want to find a record, I'm going to find the same record I was looking at in Aloha, and I'm going to pull that up, and we'll take a look at what this CRM looks like. So if you're familiar with Lightning Experience, you know that if you want to change this highlights panel, you can do that with the compact layout editor. And down here is where you make changes so that you can, using the page layout editor. So those tools that you have used with Salesforce Classic are still available with Lightning Experience. But now you're limited with certain things where, like, visually you can't really change much other than, of course, removing and adding fields. But you've lost some of that flexibility that you had with the classic Salesforce editor. Now, if you like what you see, then you're done. If you're happy with just adding a few more fields, then this is enough for you, and we're glad you attended. But if you want to do a little bit more, or if you want to make what seems like small changes without having to resort to using code, because of course with Salesforce Classic, you can have a completely custom UI using Visualforce. And if you love Visualforce, you've been going, yeah, Visualforce, thumbs up. You could even use Visualforce with the Lightning experience. I don't know why you would really want to do that, but if you're trying to, pull over legacy stuff, yes, you can still do that. And then there's also the Lightning App Builder if you want to completely build from scratch your user interface. But that's way beyond the scope of the kind of things that we're trying to cover here. So let's go take a look at what you can do with Skuid. So Skuid is an app within the Salesforce environment that you can use to completely customize your user interface. But deeper than that, you can do more. You can also customize the data, how you connect to the data, how you display the data. It doesn't even have to be just Salesforce data. It can be on SharePoint, Oracle, SAP, anything that's configured with a REST API. You can connect to that data too and bring it into this user interface to give your users the data they want to see when they want to see it. And it's not just that they can see it, they can also manipulate that information and do things with it and save information back to those external sources. It's a really dynamic tool, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We're here to look at how we customize this CRM. So let's stick to a simple example of that. So I'm going to preview this page, and what this is going to show me is a simple example of the Contacts tab as it would be done with Skuid with just a couple of components and very little configuration at all. This is a pretty straightforward example. And you'll see that it looks different. Instead of list views, you now have filters, which allow you to dynamically sort which information is shown. It allows you to drill down into your data in a way that's more complicated with list views, because you have to create a custom list view for each type of search set that you want to create. And of course, there's searches, and these are called global actions. They're just buttons that are attached to our table, and they allow you to take action on the things that you see. So this is a simple example, but let's say you wanted to make some changes. How would I go about doing that? Well, let me introduce you to your new friend, the Theme Builder. The Theme Builder came out recently with our Bonsai release, which is just a couple months old. So if you've been playing around with Skuid recently, you've probably seen this before. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you haven't gone that deep yet. So this is something new. So for even experienced Skuid users, you may not have realized that this is something that just came out. So how do we use this tool? Well, you'll notice here that out of the box, Skuid comes with some themes, and these themes can be applied immediately to your Skuid pages. So, for example, if you didn't like this theme, wasn't quite right, maybe there's one that happens to fit what you want. So in this case, I'm in the App Composer, and I've selected the header for the Skuid page, and I'm going to go over to this theme pick list, and I'm going to pick a different theme. Maybe another one that I want to see, like let's go with the paper theme. And then when I go back to my page, I'll see that a pre-created theme has been applied. And it's changed the colors. Now it's more monochrome. It's changed the way the buttons look. I think the text is the same, but I don't have a sharp enough design eye to know if they're really different. But you can see that there's been a change to this page. So yeah, it's really easy to make those changes. But then again, what if you look at this and go, this is perfect, but the text is the wrong size, or I really like a different hover action when I put my mouse over a button. Do you want to make those changes? Well, let's see how you would do that. We're going to go back to the Theme Builder, and now I'm going to click Create New Theme. And with our Theme Builder, you need to start your theme off of a pre-existing theme. This is so you don't have to go in and configure everything, which would be mind-numbingly tedious. So let's save you some trouble and pick the theme that's closest to what we want. In this case, I'm going to go with the modern theme, and I'm going to give it a name. The Amazing Webinar Theme. Setting our expectations pretty high there.
Josh, as you're launching the Theme Composer, fun fact for the audience, Skuid ships with 11 themes, including a theme based on the Lightning design system. So you can use these themes as they are, or you can use them as a starting point to build your own, which is what Josh is about to do here.
Oh no, I misspelled it. That's okay. Here we see our Theme Composer launching. And right away, you're going to see a little bit of a difference between what you saw over here on the App Composer and the Theme Composer. They're based on the same principles, but you'll see that it's got a little bit of a different layout. So on the left-hand side, I've got a navigation bar that groups together the different types of things that I can customize. So as you might guess from global, that applies to properties that will go across all of my pages. Now with each of the components with Skuid, or a number of the components within Skuid, are also customizable. So I could go into my field editor, my table, my page title, and really drill in deep to the type of theming I want to do for each of those individual components. We're not going to spend a lot of time doing that, but we are going to start with the global level and make some changes. So what else is going on here? Well, in the middle, you have a live preview, so that as you make changes over here on the right-hand side where you're tinkering with the properties, you'll see that as you make changes, things change immediately. So for example, if I were to pick a color like this eye-blinding yellow, I'll see that my header has immediately changed. So this is a way for me to do a live preview of the changes that I'm making. I'm sorry about that yellow. I hope it wasn't too awful. But let's do something that'll actually look nice, because that was pretty terrible. Let's do something that's going to be much more aesthetically pleasing. So let's start by changing the primary color, and I'm going to introduce you to something that's infamously known around the office as Skuid Blue. We love Skuid Blue. It's our favorite color here, but according to the hexadecimal system, it's also known as strong blue. Don't know if you really needed to know that, but there it is. So let's go down to the text, because I like this text, but I could stand for a change. So let's go pick the Donna, Geneva, Sans Serif family, and you'll see right away in the live preview that the text has changed. Now I also want to tweak the color a little bit, because this is close, but not quite what I'm after. I want to have a very dark gray. There we go. That's what I wanted to see. This looks a little bit better. But you'll notice that as you start to make changes, that and play around with the preview, you'll start to go, well, I like this, but I don't like that, or that's close, but not quite. So you really get to dive in deep and make the changes that you want. So for example, now that I'm seeing that as I hover over these record links, I have a color that, no, I don't really want to see that. I want to change the way that color looks. So I'm going to go to the link color, I'm going to change that. I also want to do dark gray there. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and paste it down here under hover. So that way I have a consistent look. So when I hover over these records, the color stays the same, but I still get the underline, which shows the user that, hey, something can happen when you click on this. Maybe it's not quite that bold of a statement, but it does visually indicate that there are possibilities here. Let's make one last change to these global properties. Let's change the background. We're going to give it a different color. White is nice, but let's do gray. Let's do a very light gray. There we go. We'll make some of the pieces here stand out a little bit more. The buttons stand out. You more clearly see the boundaries of the table. And if you're like me, once you've made some changes and they happen to be good, I often make changes that look pretty terrible. I don't save those, but these are good changes, so let's hit the save button. Because you never know when your computer might randomly set fire, spontaneously combust, and you don't want to lose your changes. So let's commit them out to the cloud. Okay, I've saved my theme, and let's make some other changes. Let's see what happens if we make changes to the buttons. Because as you'll see on our page, we've got a number of buttons here, and maybe they're not quite the way that we want them to look. Let's make a change to these buttons. So I'm going to click on buttons, and I'm going to make a few more changes here. So for example, maybe the text within the buttons is close, but I want something a little bit more bold. I want the uppercase text so that it screams take action. Well, maybe not screams, but emphatically states. I think that's the way that you're supposed to say it. So I've got the text looking the way I want, and now I'm going to go down to the buttons here. So you'll notice that there are 3 different button types: disabled, primary, and secondary. And they look different when you take action. So disabled is the idea, the disabled state captures what happens when, like, you have a save button on your field editor or in your page title. When there's no changes to the page, Skuid sees that, hey, there's no reason to save this model, so this save button is disabled because there's nothing to save. But as soon as you make a change to that record, the save button will light up as a primary button, and then you can take action at that point. A secondary button refers to a button that maybe needs to be as prominent. A common example is a save button would be considered primary, and a cancel would be a secondary button. And you want the primary button to be more distinct so that it draws their eye to, hey, this is probably the action that you want to take. You probably want to save. Canceling, probably not what you want to do, especially if you've made a bunch of changes. That's not what you're after. We're not going to tweak this secondary button, but we are going to make some changes to this primary button just to get an example of the kind of things you can do here. So I'm going to go back to our friend Skuid Blue, because I think that's probably the best color that you could possibly pick for a button. I don't really think that. I think it is a good choice. Now here you'll notice that you can just type in a name. I don't think you can type in Skuid Blue for the color. That's too bad. I'm going to have to make some changes here. I'm going to have to make sure that the international standards updates strong blue to be Skuid Blue. Now I'm going to go over to this action, because I want it to look a little bit different when I hover over the button. Again, I'm trying to draw your attention to, hey, something can happen. I'm going to check the background, and I'm going to give it a different color. One that I wouldn't know until I'd looked this up. This is called a slightly desaturated blue. I would not have guessed that, but hey, now I know. And I change that color. Well, it's already white, so that's good. I'll leave it there. And when I press on it. So, yeah, I like that. So it's a little bit more distinctive when I'm hovering over it.
So Josh, we've got a question that's really relevant now as we're still in this this area of the theme builder. Cherie asks where they get the numbers for the colors, for those hex colors.
That one I don't know. I'm sure it's pulled from some international standard. That's a great question. So I'll have to follow up. I know a guy who worked on the theme builder, and we can get that information to you. Because if you really wanted to know, because if you had a specific color in mind, that's so for any organization, you might find that there is like a very specific color that you want, and you'd want to know that it's possible within Skuid. I'm pretty sure that this covers all the standards that are available with hexadecimal, but I can't swear to it, so we can follow up with that. But as you can see, there's a lot of options. I mean, there's lots of swatches here, and this palette gives you a lot of control. But my clear answer is I do not know.
Well, the chat panel is lighting up with people who are offering their answers, and they're saying just do a Google search for hexadecimal colors, and you can use a color picker to find your own hex color if you don't have one already in mind.
Yeah, because I imagine that this takes any available hexadecimal number. But yes, I would prefer not to say yes to things that I don't know. So we've got so I've got my pressed color in place. So this looks a lot different. So you'll notice that on the theme that we had picked, when you pressed on, well, you can't tell I'm pressing because nothing's happening, but I'm vigorously pressing this secondary button, and there's nothing going on. But now when I press on this primary button, it looks different. So I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. The very last thing we'll do with buttons, so we don't bore you to death with buttons, is we're going to change the disabled background a little bit. So we're going to change this color to 72B9D5. That's the slightly desaturated blue that we discussed earlier. And of course we want to, well, we'll leave the text color. That's fine. I'm going to save it. And we have one more thing we want to do, but I wanted to show you something else that I like doing whenever I'm working with themes, or even when I'm just working with pages. I love to use the preview button. So let's go ahead and hit that preview button. So any Skuid page that you have within your org is available for you to use to preview. So I have a page that I've been running with called Contact Tab Lex Luthor. There it is. Launching that. So now we can see what we've been working on so far. So you'll notice that we see our background color, the font that we wanted. We got the very dark gray going on, as well as the strong blue up here. So we've got the changes that we want so far. You'll even notice that our buttons, well, to kind of show it's Ultra and X. Not sure it is, but now these buttons have lit up because I've made a change on the page. So my save looks different. My cancel looks different. I don't actually want to save this and cancel it, just in case that Voltron record was something that mattered very much to Matt Lyman. I don't want to tinker with his toys, so I'm going to step away from that one. But to give you an example of what to do with those buttons.
Wow, Josh, this is really starting to look so much better than earlier. As you keep going through this theme builder and making changes to the UI, keep in mind the concepts that Kathy mentioned earlier, which are clarity, efficiency, consistency, a user-centric focus, and general overall visual appeal.
So far, I think we've really got the overall visual appeal going on. So let's keep that up. Let's keep it up. So we're going to go back to our theme builder, and we're going to say goodbye to buttons for now. And you'll notice on our preview that the actions here and and the filters here don't quite align with the changes we've been making, right? So let's apply some of these design principles that we've been learning or tinkering with, and let's apply them to actions and filters. So I'm going to click on that section, and I've got another live preview, which allows me to make a few more changes. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the colors that are going on here. Scroll back up here. I'm going to change the backgrounds on my filters. So I bet you can't guess what, oh yeah, Squid Blue. Yeah. Why do we even bother? You know what I'm going to do. Squid Blue? Yes. Type it in there. You'll probably have this memorized like I do by the time this webinar is over. Maybe we should have a follow-up quiz to see if you can remember the hexadecimal notation for Squid Blue. The last thing I'm going to change here, now that I see that I've got the color I want, but when I hover over these, I see that I've got a blue that is offensive to me. No, it's not offensive. It just doesn't quite fit with what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go to the Actions and Filters Hover section, click on that, and I'm going to change this background to my new favorite color. Maybe it's yours too, but the slightly desaturated blue. Yes. That's perfect. I gotta save this because I like it. So now when I hover, I see that I've got the slightly desaturated blue going on. Great. So let's go back to our Let's go back to our preview page and see what changes we've made. All right. So we've got Squid Blue now everywhere, and we've got our slightly desaturated blue in all the places that we really wanted to see it. So this is just a really simple example that we've been going over. We just kind of barely scratched the surface of what you can do with the theme builder, but we just wanted to make sure that you saw that tool and saw that there are some things that you can do. The other thing I wanted to make sure that you saw was that if you're like me, you want to see what these changes look like. So this preview area is really handy. As you're changing the properties, you get to see what happens. But if you really want to see what it looks like in a specific context or on the page that you want to work with, that's when you apply it here. That's when you use preview to apply these new themes that you've been working with. So I'm going to go back over here, and you know what? I'm going to say goodbye to the theme builder for a bit, because when I'm looking at my preview, I see the end in sight. I see the finish line, but what I really want to do is incorporate some branding for my organization, because I'm super pumped to work for my company, and I want to see a header that has the kind of things I would expect for my organization. So I want for example, like my external website has really great branding, and it's got great design principles. Wouldn't you like to see that type of design that's been put into external websites on your business app? I think that would be awesome. So let's make some changes. Well, of course, I would think it's awesome. That's why I'm here. So,
Josh, as you go and do that, I want to make a real quick mention that the changes you were going through, although tedious to someone like me who's not ever done one before, these small changes, whether it's a button or a filter, could have taken hours of code. And with Skuid's theme builder, using hexadecimal values or the color palette designer, where you can kind of search for the color you want, can be a fun and quick way to make customizations to your user interface.
So let's make some more quick changes to your user interface. So something else that came out with Bonsai that you may not have realized, because it's kind of tucked away, and maybe you didn't watch you didn't see our launch webinar. Maybe you don't read our release notes. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. I mean, well, I write them, so of course I want to read our release notes. They're wonderfully fascinating to me. Well, maybe not quite, but they are very descriptive, and they do tell you about the things that are possible. But let's look at something here that you can do. So I'd mentioned that I want to change the header. I want to see something different, something that reminds me of the organization I'm in and reflects the kind of branding I expect, because I'm all about my team. So I'm going back to my app composer, and I can click on this header up here, which gives me the overall page properties. And we'd seen this a little bit before when we changed the theme, but now what we can do is we can go over here to Layout, and we can make some changes. So we have simple checkboxes that allow you to turn off the Salesforce header, sidebar, and you can turn on a custom header. As soon as I hit that checkbox, a long rectangle of infinite possibility opened up. It's your portal into perfect design. Not really. I'm overdoing it here. I gotta dial it back a little bit here. I'm gonna save it, and then I'm gonna click on this header, and let's start to make some changes because we're gonna use this to make some simple changes to our CRM. So I've clicked on the header, and the first thing I'm gonna do is I want to change the way that this header looks because this very, very dark gray is nice, but I want something else. I want it to be my favorite color.
Which color is that, Josh?
Squid blue. All right. Punch that in, and right away you can see that I've got that change going on. I've got squid blue right here, and now I want to put something in there because yeah, that color bar is nice, but that doesn't really doesn't do anything particularly useful. So I'm going to go down to our data components, and I'm going to choose the image component and drag and drop it down here. And now I've got the image properties up here. There's 3 main ways to get images in here. I could choose an external URL. So maybe you want to pull in your favorite dog picture. Maybe you want a pile of gold as your background image for is your image up here in a header. I don't know. Whatever it is that is important to your company, that's what you should put in there. You can, if you have attachments, if you have attachments on records, you can pull in an image that way, but you would need to configure your model to make sure that you get the correct record instead of just all the records within that object. But you can use our conditions on our models to make sure that you really dive in or you carefully select and slice out like a surgeon the image that you want. But you're probably going to do something simple like I am, which is you probably have images in your static resources within your org. Or maybe you don't. Maybe it's time you started. I'm going to choose an image that we already have in here, the UIG logo, because my company is UIG, which stands for User Interface Gorilla, or unintentionally golden. No, that's not. I don't know. I don't know what it means. Whatever it is, it's probably something really interesting. But we need to change this because as excited as I am about my organization, this is a ridiculously large logo, and we got to rein it in here. We got to dial it back a bit. So I'm going to go into my Styles tab for my image, and I'm going to choose a custom width because I think we need a little bit more scale. See, this is better. This is confident, yet not overstated. That's what I'm going for right here. But now if I save this, and I preview it, I'll just refresh this guy since it's already up and running. What I'll see is this is kind of squashed. Well, this is the kind of thing where if you're like me, you'll be making changes, you'll pull in the data that you want, and then you'll go look at the page to see, does this look like what I want? And in this case, I see that looks kind of smashed, like it's in a trash compactor, like Luke and Han and Leia in Star Wars: A New Hope. They're about to get crushed, so R2-D2's got to save them. Here, let's go back to our page and make that change. You can do that with padding. So padding is a property that surrounds each image, and I'm going to turn on left padding so it's not scrunched up against the side of the page. I'm also going to turn on top padding so that the top of the logo isn't mashed against the top of the browser. And then finally, I'm going to add some padding on the bottom. You don't hear people say that very often. So now the logo isn't sitting right on top of the page title component. I'm going to save that. And let's go back and preview what we have. Did I ruin everything? No. That looks pretty good.
Nice.
But there's so much more we can do. And the example that Kathy had shown you before with Informatica's portal, you saw that they had a logo, they had a navigation bar in here, they had a search component over here. These are all things that you can add into the header to really get the most out of your custom CRM. We're just doing a simple example. We wanted to show you how to quickly get a color you wanted with the image you wanted and your header, and there's a lot more that you can do. But we just wanted to kind of give you a taste of some of the things you can do. And yeah, that just took minutes. That was great. And there's so much more you can do. You saw that we're not the Titanic striking ourselves on the tip of the iceberg, but we're definitely looking at possibilities that are much deeper than what we've shown here.
Awesome, Josh. Thanks. And really nice job walking through that, those customizations. As we wrap up, I wanted to give you guys a sense, the audience a sense of where Skuid is going to be in the coming months and weeks. We are very busy, as I'm sure you are, not to mention the holiday season is upon us as well. Upcoming events that we haven't actually listed on this slide are 6 world tours with the Salesforce World Tour campaign. We'll be in Thursday this week. We'll be in Los Angeles and Minneapolis. We have 2 teams going to both events. We'll also be in Houston and Atlanta the following week on the 9th. Then Seattle and Dallas the following week on the 17th. So we have 6 world tours coming up that leads right up to the week of Christmas, basically. And as this slide suggests, we are already planning and have scheduled our Q1 training dates and locations. So if you're anywhere near Zurich, Switzerland, the week of February 16th and 17th, or Sydney, Australia, February 23rd and 24th, or even back in the States, San Francisco, California, March 8th and 9th, please join us for those training dates and locations if anything on the webinar today has really stood out to you. Emily will post the registration link in the chat window. And as you visit the site, kind of another fun fact, the current Skuid website was built with Skuid and by Skuid staff, primarily our marketing department. We utilized the theme builder during the build, and now when we want to make a change to a font or a button like you saw today, we can do so in the theme builder, just for context. Now we'll take the final couple of minutes before we let you go to answer a few of your questions. And Emily, what are people asking through the question pane, and what can we work through and answer for them?
Okay, great. The first question we have is from Aaron, and he asks, how are these changes handled if Lightning Experience is turned on for a user? Josh, can you answer that?
So, how are these changes handled if Lightning Experience is turned on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for Skuid functions in Lightning. So if you are using Lightning Experience, in fact, let's go back. This is better shown. So here I'm actually operating in the sorry, I'm stumbling over things here. What I can do here real quick is I can actually go over to the Lightning Experience and show you that. So right now, so you'll see here from the URL that this page is being run on top of a Visualforce page, right? So that would be the standard. That would be how Skuid operated most of the time. But now if I go over to the Lightning Experience, which you can see I'm in now, you can still do the user interface overrides using Skuid. So I'm now in the Lightning Experience, and in this org we have overridden the Lightning Experience UI. So now you can see that this is the Skuid page. These are all the things that we were just looking at. These are the Skuid filters. These are the Skuid buttons up here. You can see that this is our stuff working within the Lightning Experience. So it's like, I hope that answers your question. I thought, like, instead of trying to stumble over technical terms, I can let you know that, yeah, you can build these pages for the Lightning Experience and override that user interface.
Okay, great. Yeah, Aaron clarified. He said his question was based on what was demoed because the demo loads in Classic Aloha.
I think probably a smarter thing for me to have done would have been to have run it here over in Lightning. So sorry about that. Yeah, because we're already in Lightning. We're already running in Lightning, and as you can see, we function very well in Lightning. Our URL is running off of the Lightning Experience here.
Okay, the next question is from Casey, and they ask, are there examples of Skuidified Salesforce communities? And Josh, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Informatica, the example we showed earlier, a Salesforce community, or is that slightly different?
That's a portal.
Okay.
They are very similar, though. I do believe there are examples of there are Skuid communities out there. In fact, we even have a deep dive YouTube video that goes over how to build a community based off of Skuid. So there are examples that goes really deep into terms of how you build it and how you deploy it, because the tricky bit about communities is the actual deployment. So we do have information about how to run communities with Skuid.
Okay, great. I'll post that link in the chat pane. The next question is, can JavaScript be used to customize Skuid?
Yes. One thing that you can still do with Skuid is you can customize. If you find that you can't do declaratively what you want with Skuid, which we think you can do a lot, especially with things like our action framework, which really serves as a way to encourage developers to not use JavaScript so extensively, because I know how it is. Like, you're so familiar with this coding language, you just want to, and you're really good at it. So it seems like, well, yeah, I'll just accomplish this with JavaScript. But there's a lot you can do with our action framework to replace that. But if you wanted to extend Skuid with JavaScript, you can do that. And I should also point out that even with our theme builder, if there was still custom CSS that you wanted to run on your Skuid pages, you can still do that. That's still something that you can add. That was previously how people would really make those types of changes. But again, it's like our theme builder and our action framework are two ways that we're trying to get you to not code so much and show you that you can do so much without actually going to your coding comfort zone.
Okay, we're running up close on time, so I'm going to keep asking and getting answers for a few questions, but if anyone needs to jump off early, we will be sending out this, this recording sometime this week, and thanks so much for coming. The next question we have is from Christy, and she asks, we have buttons we created with Conga Composer on list views and on detail pages. Does Skuid work with Conga Composer buttons?
I know it does. I don't know the specific implementation of it. That's something that is on our. We have our Skuid support community, and I know Conga comes up from time to time there because we do have quite a few users who are also using Conga. I don't know how the Conga buttons look in Skuid, and I think it's more of an issue where I think what happens is that you connect to Conga with a Skuid, with a button you've built or you've implemented with Skuid, but we're getting into where the Josh doesn't know area. But I know that the answer's out there on our Skuid community, because I've seen that dialogue going on there between our engineers and customers who are using Conga.
And I just posted a link to the community on the chat pane, so Christy, if you'd like more information about that, you can either check that out or just contact us directly and we can answer that. Peter asks, how would I make style and colors different based on data in my model, such as highlighting a navigation element when data is missing?
Oh, okay. So that might be something more where, well, that's a really specific and also super cool example. That's not, I don't think you can do anything like that with the theme builder. I'm pretty sure I've not seen anything that granular. I think that's something where if someone wanted to do something like extend with JavaScript, so that if there's data missing or data is not in a field, then conditionally you would change the color. So that's where you would get into custom code, which I think makes Skuid sad. We don't want you to have to code, but I don't think there's a way to. I guess the phrase we use is there's not a declarative way to do that. At least not that I know. If I find out, I would be excited to follow up with you and say yes, it's possible. But right now, I think that might be a coding thing.
And maybe we can add that to the wish list for the theme builder's next update.
Yes. Yeah, because you see how powerful the theme builder is, and that's just version 1. And we're taking all of the input that you guys give us in terms of what works really well, what doesn't work so well, what's clear, what's unclear, what you'd like to see, what maybe is confusing, and we're taking all that input and then incorporating that into the improvements that we will continue to make with the theme builder as our product continues to evolve.
Okay, the next question is from Terrence, who asks, can you assign a theme page once you've created a Can you assign a theme page you've created to a standard Salesforce page, or do you have to rebuild it in Skuid?
You can't apply the themes to a standard Salesforce layout. You'd have to rebuild it you'd have to rebuild it. You know, and something I didn't mention earlier was, or maybe I did, but I just kind of glossed over it. But we saw how to apply themes, but we only looked at it on the page level. And you can actually, this is again the better shown than. It's better to show this one than just tell you about it. So what I can also do is I can apply these themes at a higher level than what I have going on here. So let me go back to, I'm going to do the wrong setting here. Okay, so this is where I would assign themes. So I can do it at organizational levels, and I can also do it at profile or user levels. And this is a way for me to really fine-tune who sees what. But with this, the more specific element wins. So the org defaults are overridden by profile or users, which are overridden by pages if you get that specific. So you have a lot of flexibility in how you apply the themes, because maybe you want to have a different theme for a different profile based on the type of things that they expect to see or the type of things they might be doing.
Okay. The next question is from Aaron, and he asks, Lightning Experience is touted as a responsive interface, mobile phones, tablets, etc. Does Skuid support this model?
Yeah, so one of the things that we also have here, I think I might just leave out my browser here, because I keep going back to this. So I'm going to go back to the app composer here, and right. So at a base level, Skuid is fairly responsive. But if you really wanted to fine tune it so that it looks, so that things really change based on the device that's viewing it, that's when you're going to need to use some of our other layout components. For example, like the I'll just go ahead and drag and drop this guy down here, a responsive grid. So if I click on this responsive grid, I see that I can control, yeah, that's the space. Let me add a division. Gotta pick on the division here. So each of these divisions within the responsive grid determines how this component responds to different sizes. So I might want to make it so that it flexes and stacks components on top of each other if the resolution is small, like on a mobile device, like on an iPhone or an Android phone. Or you might want to use the responsive grid to lay out your components so that it looks different on like an iPad type size, some kind of tablet device. So you use the responsive grid to determine what happens to components and when the page is rendered at different resolutions. Yeah, so this is also something new with Bonsai, because we do have a mobile composer, but one of the things we've really started to do is move our desktop more towards mobile devices, because we do see a lot of people building pages that they end up wanting to see on tablet devices, and they look fantastic, but sometimes you're going to want to pull that page up on a smartphone. And we want those same pages to have some built-in features that allow it to adapt quickly and in a way that is not visually nonsensical.
Okay, here's another question from Cherie, who asks, when making content changes, can you make content changes with Skuid, or do you have to make them in Salesforce and only make the aesthetic changes with Skuid?
Oh, yeah, so to be clear, like, yeah, we really just talked about the end result of the user interface here, right? So we've changed the way this looks, but I hope I'm answering your question correctly, but all the changes that you want to make to the data itself can be done in here. So this is more than just at the user interface level. This is actually this is going back to the database. So if I commit this save, this goes back to the database, and that's now a change that's on that Salesforce object that I was working with. So I don't just have to make changes in the Salesforce layouts, whether it's classic or in Lightning Experience. I'm actually manipulating data here within these pages. Yeah, you can turn this so that you can change the properties of this table so it's just read-only if you just wanted to show data. But by default, we assume that you're here to make some changes and make some things happen. So you can go in here and make all the changes that you want, both with inline editing, as also if you wanted to change multiple records at once. I click on those, and maybe they all have the same business phone of 423 423 4234. Yes. So yeah. So these are all changes that are being committed to the database. If you wanted to just see a quick example of some of the things that are going on here.
What if someone wanted to add a column?
Well, so here that's really easy, and in the sense that all this is down here. Oh, I'm going to get rid of this. This is going to make things ugly when I show the preview. So I'm going to go to the table component, and these columns are all fields that I've added to the table component. So if I want to add a column here, I'm going to click on Add Fields, Model Fields, and then I get to see all the fields that are on the object itself. So if there's a field that I want to add, and again, and to be clear, this includes standard and custom fields, any of the fields that you want. So my personal favorite field in our org is, this is a custom field. It's the is hungry Boolean field, because I think that's an important thing to know about your clients, because if they're hungry, they might not be in a good mental state to make good decisions. So I think that's probably a field that you want to implement. So I'm going to go back to this preview, and you'll see that I've very quickly added another field. And I can go back over here and, oh, I know this guy's hungry, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in place. There we go. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. Oh, and I didn't show it, but in field editors, well, I can get to that quickly. So field editors, you can do basically as many columns as you want. Not that we recommend that, because that would look pretty ugly. But if I wanted to add that page, and so this is a detail page. I'm clicking madly, so it's not clear what I'm doing. Yeah, so I'm on a detail page, and if I wanted to add more columns here, this is another place where people add columns. I can, yeah, that looks terrible. That's bad design. But if that was important to you, maybe you just wanted to have like ones and zeros in columns. I don't know. I'm leaving the possibilities up to you. But the field editor is also very flexible in terms of the columns that you can do. This one has 3, but you can have 1. You know, it's up to you. We don't have any built-in limitations on columns.
Another question is, does Chatter work well with Skuid?
Chatter works with Skuid. As I'm not a connoisseur of Chatter, I don't know the well part. I don't know specifically. I know that I think yes. Let's preview this page and let's take a look. I'm going to go with Odin's son. Thor is a reliable fellow when it comes to being a contact here. Yes, wow. That guy's really serious about his hammer. You'll notice that this is non-proprietary information. We are not referencing Marvel's, Disney's, The Avengers, Thor. Man, that's a lot of stuff stacked on top of that guy's name. This is cramping out this. Okay, this looks terrible. We ought to put some. You remember we did that width? We should do that here. Anyway, that's something to come back to. We're not here to marvel at the awesomeness of Thor's hammer. We're here to look at the chatter component. Okay. So, wow, that looks weird. There's nothing going on here. Where's the party? Well, this is scrunched. I'm not sure what's going on here. I think that's because my image component is compressing this. Let's experiment real quick. So yeah, so you can see we've got the chatter component here, and all updates internally. And this doesn't look quite right to me. I'm not sure what's going on. I can follow up with you about that, but yeah. So here we go. The chatter component is something that we do support. And we do pull into, we do have customers using it within their organizations. Some of it use it on like a home page so that their teams can collaborate, which is what Chatter was built for. And in this case, it's just to follow those records based on Thor in that case. So yeah, so it functions. It didn't look quite the way I expected it to. Not sure what that's about.
So just to add to what Josh said, we actually have a customer that uses Chatter, a Squidified version of Chatter, instead of their email for all internal communication. So anytime anyone needs to send anything internally, they use the Squidified version of Chatter, which is pretty cool. That looks like most of the questions. If you have a question that wasn't answered today, you can email Andy, who is the organizer, andy@squidify.com, and he'll put you in touch with the right person. And thank you so much for joining us. We had a lot of fun and hope you did too.
As we conclude today's webinar, I want to thank you for joining and taking the time out of your busy schedule. Thank you to Kathy for walking us through best practices for great CRM user interface design, and to Josh for demoing the latest from Skuid, specifically our theme builder, and for Emily for making sure we always stay on task and answer and get to all of your questions. We will be sending out the full recording to our registrants within about a day or two. And that's it for us, and we hope you install a free trial. Let us know if you have any questions, like Emily said. Goodbye for now, and from us, happy holidays.